let us move forward. As you know, we are talking about brand positioning and repositioning. So, these are the criteria that you must keep in mind when you choose your POP and POD. Now, let us look at the same in the context of brands and branding elements. Especially here you can see in this matrix 3 brands, and they are Nike, Disney and McDonald's, and on the x axis you can see emotional modifier, descriptive modifier and brand function. Now, look at Nike. What is the emotion that Nike promises? And Nike, if you remember, it says just, the tagline of Nike is just do it. Don't talk about it, don't tiptoe around it, don't beat around the bush, just do it. So, emotional modifier, the feeling that you get when you engage with a brand like Nike is, it is authentic. It is not trying to beat around the bush, it is saying just do it. And because it deals with sports and sports equipments, its descriptive modifier means if you try to describe Nike brand, you will move in the areas of athleticism. So, athletics, sports, etc. And brand function. So, Nike is about performance, because sports itself is about performance. So, when you take a cricket bat and walk into the field, you are expected to make runs. When you are taking a ball and taking a run up and going and bowling fast or bowling spin, you are supposed to either take wickets or you are supposed to prevent the batsman from taking runs. So, it is all about performance. When you dive into a swimming pool, you are supposed to swim to the other side of the swimming pool in the minimum possible time. So, it is all about performance, and since sports is about performance, Nike brand is also about performance. So, when you think of POP, POD, you must think when Nike versus Adidas, you will see Nike is, say, authentic brand, whereas Adidas may be a more flamboyant brand. Alright. So, you can see how POP, POD is working. So, Nike will also be of performance, Adidas will be also about performance, but Nike is more authentic, Adidas might be more flamboyant. Let us look at Disney. Now, Disney, all of us know, is for family fun. So, emotional modifier is fun and descriptive modifier is family. So, it is fun not in an adult sense. It is not fun where boy and girl or man and woman go and they have fun in their own way. It is not that fun. Disney is fun where you take the whole family together and you enjoy yourself as a family. So, the function that Disney brand performs is entertainment. Now, similarly, if you take some other brand which is a competitor to Disney, you will find that the emotional modifier and the descriptive modifier will be little different. So, for example, if you think of, say, cabarets in Paris, now those cabarets are adult entertainment and therefore, they are not family entertainment, and in that way they are different from Disney as a brand. Let us look at the third brand, which is McDonald's, and here also it is fun and it is folks and it is food. It is of course fun because it is great to go into a restaurant of McDonald's where people eat together, and you know that McDonald's is not very expensive. So, anybody can go and it is a large number of crowd. When you enter into a McDonald's, you will generally see that it is a crowded place and it is for folks also. So, in a family that goes into McDonald's, you will see that you will have people across all generations. So, you will have children, you will have their parents and you will have also their grandparents, and all of them are coming together around food because McDonald's is a restaurant. Now, same thing if you try to extend and bring another brand into the picture, say some fine dining restaurant which is a popular restaurant, you will see that the emotional modifier and the descriptive modifier will change, because depending on the nature. For example, if you go to Hard Rock Cafe, now Hard Rock Cafe is very different from McDonald's. The emotional modifier for Hard Rock Cafe will perhaps be excitement, and excitement which is little edgy in the sense adult entertainment, where alcohol is a part of the deal, and so on so forth. So, that is how these key insights into brands help us in deciding POPs and PODs for our brands. Let us move further and now look at the idea of brand repositioning. Now, till now we have been seeing what is brand positioning, and I must tell you that brand management activity, the whole activity of brand management sometimes can be, and in fact is, reduced to just this exercise of brand positioning and then sometimes brand repositioning, because many people feel and many marketers actually are very convinced about this idea that brand management is nothing but positioning your product in the minds of the consumer. And if you remember this definition, that brand positioning is about finding one unoccupied niche in the prospect's mind and fill it with one thing that sticks. So, a large number of marketers and a large number of brand managers actually think that brand management is nothing but a brand positioning exercise. All right, and that is why I feel that all of you must pay enormous amount of attention to these sessions where we are dealing with this aspect of brand management called brand positioning. Brand repositioning is also a kind of positioning, just that what we are doing is we are modifying the positioning, or we are repositioning with some new value system, new product features, and perhaps sometimes even a new way of looking at the world, looking at the marketplace. So, that is something that we are going to learn now. So, brand repositioning is what we would see now. Now, one of the classic example of brand repositioning is this wine called Dom Perignon. Now, this is a wine which is very expensive. In fact, it is said that this wine is almost 2 lakh or 5 lakh rupees per bottle. And you know, this company which makes this wine, they were thinking that after, because if who can afford a wine, a bottle of wine which is 5 lakh rupees? Only rich men can afford such an expensive wine, and rich men are generally old. So, with the passage of time, what will happen is old men will die, and then there will be nobody left who will know about this brand. So, they were thinking that this brand will soon die, and so what did they do? They felt that only old men are aware of it and only they are using it, only James Bond, so people will watch it only on screen and they think that only James Bond can have this wine, and it is too exclusive. If it is too exclusive, then very few people know about it and soon it will die. Not many myths are also created around this wine. So, what they did was they created a campaign. In that campaign, they asked Karl Lagerfeld, if you know, he is a fashion designer, a famous fashion designer. They hired Karl Lagerfeld to create a video, and in that video what they did was they hired two young models. One was a famous model called Nasha Oerman, a Romanian model, one stylish, fashionable girl called Nasha Oerman, and one male model. And in that video, which was made by Karl Lagerfeld, he created this storyline where even younger people can have this wine called Dom Perignon, and it was circulated in a appropriate target group, and people came to know about it, and gradually this became little more popular among the middle age people and not just among the older men. So, this is one way of doing repositioning of a brand. Another example I will give you is the example of Times of India. Now, Times of India is a very popular newspaper, all of us know about it, and we also know that it is perceived as a little non-serious newspaper, because the kind of pictures that it publishes, and it is seen like a tabloid, and it often talks about sexual lives of celebrities, and also it deals with such issues which are often salacious, and it is very colorful. So, people generally perceive Times of India as a not very serious newspaper. You must also keep in mind that the newspaper against which people compare Times of India are newspapers like Hindu, papers like the Telegraph, or newspaper like the Hindustan Times or Indian Express. Now, most of these newspapers, particularly Hindu and Indian Express, are considered to be serious newspapers. They do sincere journalism, and when Times of India is contrasted against those newspapers, it naturally comes across as slightly non-serious and tabloid like. So, what did Times of India do? They also were aware that this is how they are being perceived. So, they launched some programs, and these were some of those programs. You might remember they launched a program called Aman Ki Asha. This program tried to build bridges between India and Pakistan, and they ran several supplements, interviews, features. A large number of such projects were carried out for a significantly long period of time, so that people realize that Times of India is not just a non-serious, filmy kind of a newspaper, but it also engages into something more serious and substantial. It also started an event or a competition called Lead India, and it asked people to nominate young leaders from their community, from in their midst, and then they continued it for a long period of time, where every young leader articulated their vision for India, and also what they have done in their surroundings, in their midst, to develop India into what they want it to develop as. So, this was also a very serious effort towards establishing Times of India as a little serious newspaper. All right. Then another initiative they launched was something called Teach India, and here what they did was they asked for volunteers who would go in the nearby villages, in the slums, and they will actually take up responsibilities of teaching those who are illiterate or those who are children and who do not have access to good education. So what I am trying to say is that brands are also aware that they are being perceived in a certain manner, and if they think that it is affecting their sales, it is affecting their leadership position, or whichever position they have in the market, it is affecting their position, then they try to do something so that they can reposition the brand and try to address those issues. One more such example is the example of Idea Cellular. Now, most of us would be familiar with this, that Idea is a telecom operator. It is owned by Birla. Many of you may not be aware that it was actually owned by 3 companies in the past, and those 3 companies were Birla, AT&T and Tata. So, all the 3 companies came together to create this mobile company called Idea. Early on, its name was not Idea, it was called, often we used to call it Batata, because it was Birla, AT&T and Tata, and that is why we used to call it Batata. However, at one point of time, AT&T and Tata, both of them exited this company and they sold their shares to Birla, and Birla became the sole owner of this mobile company and they gave it the name Idea. So, that is when it became Idea Cellular. Now, you may remember that or you may not remember that Idea Cellular, when it was launched, it was promoted in the mass media through by saying that it has very good network. Whether you go to Cochin, whether you go to Calcutta, whether you go to Jammu and Kashmir, and you remember it will show that people are calling from remote corners of the country to another remote corner of the country, and they can hear each other very clearly and they can talk, etc. So, this brand was promoted through by saying that it has a very good pan India network. It also promoted itself by launching new and exciting tariff plans. It also launched one night plan where at night after 10 AM, after 10 PM, it probably becomes free or it becomes close to free. And it also started plans where I mean, right now we will not understand it because now all of us are used to unlimited talk time, etc. But at that time it was not so. So, often they would do is they would allow free calling in between some routes. I remember in one case Idea allowed calling between West Bengal circle and Kerala circle free of cost at night. They realized that a large number of people are migrating from West Bengal to Kerala in search of jobs, and during the day they work and at night they want to connect to their families. And at night, because Idea was giving fully free full free option of talking, all of them were actually taking Idea connection. So, suddenly we saw that Idea was number 1 in Kerala, and the reason was this. And then of course, they also promoted themselves through VAS. VAS is value added services. Now, today we may not understand it because all of us have smartphones, and in smartphones we can access internet very easily. But at that time everybody did not have smartphones, everybody had feature phones, and in feature phones many value added services were provided. So, Idea was very good at providing these value added services, and because of value added services many people used to buy Idea phone. But as the industry developed, as people realized that new technology is coming and these elements like network, everybody has good network, everybody has all tariff plans, everybody has value added services, and everyone has now internet on their phones. So, what did they do? They changed or they repositioned the brand, and now what they started saying was, if you remember, Idea University. So, because internet is available in your phone, you can do anything on your phone. So, and then of course, there were several other social causes with which Idea tried to identify itself. So, You might remember they hired Abhishek Bachchan, and Abhishek Bachchan used to promote Idea Mobile, saying that through this you can also serve many social causes. So, we have seen two examples where in fact, three examples where brands have repositioned themselves in order to meet the challenges in the marketplace. If you look around yourself, you will see many more such examples, how brands are repositioning themselves. If you look at banking space, now see State Bank, all of us are familiar with State Bank. It is a government bank, and it is considered to be a very slow bank. It was, at least at one point of time, was considered to be very slow. People will make fun of the fact that when you go to the bank, they will say it is lunch time and counters are closed, and many memes were circulating about State Bank related to their lunch time. I remember when we were working in Yes Bank, we used to talk about it, and we used to say that State Bank is like an elephant, and imagine what will happen to banking industry if elephant begins to dance. And lo and behold, today if you see State Bank after a few years, you will realize that State Bank today is as fast, as swift, and as customer focused as any private bank. In fact, you will see that State Bank is better than many private banks. Many things you can do in branches of State Bank that you cannot do in the branches of private banks. For example, if you go to say Yes Bank or you go to say HDFC Bank, often they would say that you please submit your documents, we will send it to the back office, there they will process your documents and then they will make the changes in your account. For example, if you want to change your address, or you want to change your mail ID, or you want to change your phone number, many things cannot be done in the branch in many private banks. But if you go to State Bank, you will see that right in front of you, they will immediately change these things because they have the authority to change these fields in the software. They have been given that authority. And they have been given this authority because State Bank has that vintage. For last so many years, they have been in this business. They know how it happens. They know what are the risks involved, and they also know their customers. You know, KYC is a very important element in any banking industry. KYC means know your customer, and because State Bank is in this field for a very long time, they know their customers and they know which customer they can trust easily. So, on the basis of their understanding, of their knowledge of the customer, they make many of these decisions on the spot, which new banks or private banks are not able to do. They think that it is very risky, and so they pass it on to the back office where the necessary checking is done, and only then these changes are made. So, let me stop here today and reflect that today we have seen brand positioning and brand repositioning exercises and how they can be done, how space can be created in the mind, and how POPs and PODs are used for both positioning and for repositioning the brand in the mind of the consumer and in the marketplace. Thank you very much.